Have you ever looked at something so small, so ordinary, and so unremarkable that you almost walk right past it without realizing it might hold the answers to questions humanity has been asking for centuries? Right now, in a quiet laboratory filled with the soft hum of computers, researchers are staring at what appears to be nothing more than a dark, pixelated black smudge on a digital screen. It doesn't look important. It doesn't look like treasure. It looks like a shadow, a glitch in the system, or perhaps just the damaged remains of something long forgotten. But what you're seeing on the screen, this pixelated black spot, is not an ordinary piece of charcoal. This is a time capsule that's been sealed for 2,000 years. Inside, it could be Aristotle's lost works, Rome's secret history, or philosophical revolutions that humanity has never heard of. The problem is, if you try to open the scroll, it will turn to dust and disappear. But in 2024, a group of young programmers achieved the impossible. Using artificial intelligence, without moving it even a centimeter, they started reading these petrified scrolls. Today, we are on the trail of that first word rising from the ashes and the terrifying knowledge awaiting humanity. What if the greatest library the ancient world ever created didn't burn to ash like so many others? What if it survived in the most unexpected way possible, waiting patiently for a technology that wouldn't be invented until our own time? That moment has arrived, and the words that are now being pulled from the darkness have the power to rewrite far more than just history textbooks. They have the power to make us question everything we thought we understood about the people who came before us. It was the summer of 79 AD when the world changed forever for the people living along the Bay of Naples. Mount Vesuvius didn't just wipe Pompeii off the map in a single catastrophic day. It sealed its wealthy neighbor Herculaneum with a devastating 500-degree pyroclastic flow that swept down the mountain with terrifying speed. While the residents of Pompeii were buried under layers of ash and their bodies were preserved in haunting detail, in Herculaneum everything organic was instantly turned to charcoal. The extreme heat carbonized wood, food, cloth, furniture, and thousands of delicate papyrus scrolls, transforming them into fragile black cylinders that looked exactly like ordinary pieces of firewood. When serious excavations finally began in the 18th century, workers digging through the hardened volcanic material kept coming across what they believed were thousands of charred wooden logs buried deep underground. Not knowing any better, they gathered many of these logs and burned them for warmth during the cold nights of digging. It was only when someone finally noticed faint traces of silver writing still visible on one of the remaining pieces that they realized what they had actually found. This was the only largely intact library to survive from the entire ancient Roman world, the legendary Villa of the Papyri. This wasn't just any villa, it was a magnificent seaside mansion, almost certainly owned by Lucius Calpurnius Piso, the powerful father-in-law of Julius Caesar himself. The villa contained its own private library filled with thousands of scrolls, one of the largest and most important collections ever discovered from that era. When the volcano erupted, the superheated gas and ash didn't simply bury the building under rubble. It flash-carbonized everything inside, preserving the scrolls in a strange and almost cruel manner. They survived the destruction, but they became impossibly fragile. For nearly 200 years after their discovery, scholars could only stare at these blackened rolls with a mixture of excitement and deep frustration. Every single attempt to carefully unroll even one of them ended in heartbreak. The ancient papyrus would crack, split, and crumble into dust right in their hands. The knowledge was right there, locked inside the carbon, yet completely unreachable. It felt as though the volcano had not only destroyed an entire city, but it also placed a permanent and unbreakable curse on its greatest intellectual treasure. That curse lasted for centuries, until modern science finally found a way to break it. For hundreds of years, these scrolls sat in museum collections and research libraries like a cruel curse. If you touched them or tried to unroll them, they would fall apart almost immediately. If you left them completely alone, they would give up none of their secrets no matter how long you waited. That long deadlock finally broke in 2023 when an ambitious international competition called the Vesuvius Challenge was launched. The scrolls were scanned using a specially adapted X-ray device thousands of times more powerful than a regular medical CT scanner. Researchers then taught artificial intelligence models to recognize the microscopic height and texture differences created by the ancient ink on the carbonized paper, and the first complete word was successfully deciphered: purpureus. That means purple. This isn't just any ordinary color. In ancient Rome, purple was the ultimate symbol of imperial power and high status, a dye so expensive and rare that it was reserved almost exclusively for emperors and the highest members of the elite. The library was finally starting to speak after 2,000 years of silence. Imagine the atmosphere in the laboratory the moment that first word appeared clearly on the screen. After centuries of failed attempts, after watching so many scrolls turn to dust in the hands of earlier generations, a machine had done what no human hand could ever achieve. It didn't damage even a single delicate fiber of the ancient papyrus. It simply looked straight through the carbon and read the invisible writing that had been placed there so long ago. When the word porphyros emerged, everyone in the room understood that this was more than just a technical success. That single word already carried deep meaning. It suggested that the owner of this library had moved in the highest circles of Roman society. And if one single word could survive hidden inside these carbonized rolls for 2 millennia, then what other powerful and perhaps even controversial ideas might still be waiting inside the hundreds of other scrolls that have not yet been fully read? This breakthrough represents the birth of something entirely new in the field of archaeology. We are now entering the age of cyber-archaeology, where artificial intelligence works alongside human experts to recover voices from the past that were once considered permanently lost. The same advanced imaging and machine learning techniques being used on these Herculaneum scrolls are already being applied to other damaged and unreadable manuscripts around the world. We are no longer limited by what fires, wars, natural disasters, and the simple passage of time have destroyed. We are limited only by how determined and creative we are willing to be in our efforts to bring those lost words back into the light. The parts that have been read so far have taken us to a surprising place, the secret lessons of an Epicurean philosopher named Philodemus on food, music, and enjoying the pleasures of life. But this is only the tip of the iceberg. Scientists think the real bomb is in the lower floors of the library. Could there be lost pre-Christian texts or Caesar's unpublished political testament that could change the course of history? These scrolls could make us throw away the history we know. Philodemus was not a minor or forgotten thinker. He was one of the most important philosophical voices of his time, and historical evidence strongly suggests that he actually lived and worked inside this very villa. His writings explore how to live a truly good and meaningful life, how to appreciate good food, beautiful music, friendship, simple daily pleasures, and intellectual conversation while learning to face death without unnecessary fear. These ideas were considered quite radical and even dangerous by some powerful people in the ancient world, and many of them still feel surprisingly modern and relevant to our own lives today. But what we have managed to read so far is only a small beginning. Experts believe the truly explosive and potentially history-changing material is still waiting deeper inside the library, in sections that have barely been touched. We already know that enormous amounts of ancient literature have been lost forever over the centuries. We possess only a tiny fraction of the plays written by the great Greek tragedians Sophocles and Euripides. We have almost none of Aristotle's later and most influential works on philosophy, science, and politics. Entire famous libraries in Alexandria, Rome, and other great centers of learning burned to the ground during wars and disasters. What if some of those missing masterpieces are still inside these carbonized rolls from Herculaneum? What if we discover previously unknown political writings from the final turbulent years of the Roman Republic that completely change how we understand power struggles, betrayal, and the fall of the old order? What if we find philosophical or even early religious texts that predate Christianity and force us to rethink entire chapters of intellectual and spiritual history? Every new line that the artificial intelligence successfully pulls from the darkness feels like opening a door that has been locked shut since the 1st century. And most of the lower levels of the library remain almost completely unread. The biggest revelations, the ones that could genuinely force us to rewrite large parts of what we thought we knew, may still be waiting for us in the scrolls that have not yet been fully decoded. Justice sometimes comes 2,000 years later. This library's discovery isn't just another archaeological find. It's the restitution of humanity's shared heritage. We have a deep responsibility to our own history, to hear the voice that has been trapped inside these piles of dust and ash for so long. Artificial intelligence isn't simply decoding ancient symbols and ink marks. It is bringing us the actual whispers of our ancestors across the vast gulf of time. The ashes of Herculaneum have long since cooled, but the fire of knowledge that was buried with them is only now beginning to burn again. For 2,000 years, these scrolls remained trapped in complete darkness, buried under layers of hardened volcanic rock that seemed impossible to penetrate without destroying what was inside. Now, because a small group of brilliant scientists, programmers, and historians refused to accept that lost forever was the final answer, those ancient voices are finally being heard once more. This isn't only about one luxurious villa or one collection of carbonized scrolls. It is about something much larger and more important: the remarkable resilience of human knowledge itself. Knowledge can survive natural disasters of unimaginable scale. It can survive the slow erosion of time, and with the right combination of human curiosity and advanced technology, it can even survive our own limitations as a species. Every scroll that begins to speak again reminds us that the people who lived 2,000 years ago were not so different from us after all. They worried about happiness and meaning. They thought deeply about power and justice. They wondered about friendship, pleasure, and what makes a life worth living. And now, after 2,000 years of silence, they are speaking directly to us once more through the words that technology has finally allowed us to recover. The real question we now face is no longer whether we can read these scrolls. The real and much more important question is this: what will we do with the knowledge they contain? Because once these ancient words are released into the modern world, we can never unhear them or pretend we do not know what they say. The fire that was buried under the cold ashes of Herculaneum is rekindling, and this time it has the power to illuminate parts of our own present and future in ways we never expected. If you're curious about what secrets will be revealed in the next step of this discovery, subscribe and turn on notifications. In the next video, we'll continue descending into the darkest wells of history, ChronoScripts, bringing the dust of the past back to the surface. Do you think there might be something in those scrolls that shouldn't be read? Let's meet in the comments.